What's up, guys? How y'all doing? Hey, we're gonna be doing some build stuff today. We're gonna be taking, I don't know if any of you have ever wanted to make some sort of a RS232 transceiver chip of a deal, because I know a lot of times in your projects you'll be doing, like I got one here, you'll be doing a project like this and you need some serial communication for it, and you got to snap the little chip in, and you got to put the RS232 thing on it, or maybe not, or maybe you have one that's one of these. I think I have one over here that's a wire deal. Let me grab it. One of these, you have to maybe hook one of these in that has it, and it's all just real messy. Wouldn't it be just really nice if you could just hook something up, just dangle some wires off of your breadboard here, just pull some wires out, hook them up to a little device out here and make it work? Well, that's what we're going to be building today. So everybody, come along, let's make something. Okay guys, here we are. We got I highly recommend picking one of these up. They're not too bad. This one was a two-piece one. I have this little deal, and of course you can see I've been building other things. I just kind of leave it there. But these are those pan vices. I highly recommend getting one of these. These are very nice. They hold your board for you while you're soldering. It's your third hand. I mean, you can get those other things. I think I have one somewhere. Well, I can't find it right now, but I have one of those third hands or whatever. It has all the little alligator clips, but the alligator clips wear out after a while and whatnot. Those are great to start with, but if you really want to get something that's nice, that'll last you a while, is get one of these pan vices. These are actually very good. I highly recommend them. All right, I got our parts right here. We got our capacitors. We got our 232 chip. We got our serial interface guy. We got all the different pieces. We got the two terminals for here, the lug terminals, whatever you want to call them, and then our piece of board. Okay, so what you can do is, this was cut from a bigger piece of perf board. Now this is just another example. I didn't have any other big sheets of perf board left, but this is an example. What we can do is, I'll see if I can't zoom in here. Zoom in right here, and what we can do is, let me scoot this out of the way. What I usually do is I usually get the shape or the size of what I'm going to deal with, measure it out, use a ruler or something, measure it out with, and then I usually take an X-Acto knife, is what I usually use, and take this and score this FR4 material. You just take it and draw down it and score it a couple, 3 times using pretty good pressure. In fact, I wouldn't recommend doing it over your mat. I'm just doing this for demonstration. I would suggest putting like a piece of metal or something underneath this, and then you just score this. And then once you get done scoring it, you should be able to just take your 2 fingers and bend it, and you'll end up breaking it, okay? And it should break on that score line. FR4 is usually pretty easy to do that with. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to back out here. Oops, other way. And we'll get going with this. So I'm going to put this up because we've already cut our piece. So there's our piece. Okay, we're going to bring over our pan vise here. I also recommend, if you're going to be soldering indoors or really soldering period, is pick up one of these hoods. These things are fantastic. I don't know if you can really see. It's kind of not in the shot. I want it to be off the side. I don't want it to block anything. But basically what it is it's a vapor hood. It absorbs all that smoke from the rosin that's on the solder, the flux or whatever you want to call it, that's on the solder. It smokes as you're soldering. This thing absorbs. It's just a little fan. Turn it on. I don't know if you can hear it. You can probably hear it. Anyway, you turn this on. It has a filter in it, inside of it, and it's interchangeable. You can buy new filters for it, and it basically filters it. It's kind of like your hood over your range in your house. So anyway, so we're going to set that off to the side, and come back to this. What we're going to do is we're going to put in our board. That's what I like to do, and just kind of tighten it down. And now this thing, if we loosen this guy, has a hold of it, and you can orient it any way you want to actually put the stuff in. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put in a couple of pieces. So what I'm going to do is, on this side, the long side, I'm going to put in these little pieces right here. So we're going to slide that in, and then we'll slide that in. Okay, so those are in place. Now, they are not rigid because obviously I have not soldered them down yet. So this is where I like to kind of tip up my vise, kind of at an angle, okay? So that way you're not getting too crazy. Let's see if we can't zoom in a little bit. Let me push this up where you guys can see it. Okay, so I like to put my vise up at an angle here so that way I can get underneath it here with a soldering iron. So let's go ahead and I'm going to set my vapor hood kind of nearby, kick it on, tick on my soldering iron because we're going to let that thing get going. It'll take it a minute to get ready, so we're going to get some solder. I've just got a couple of different kinds of solder. It's nice to have different sizes. I've got a .022 well, you can't really see that, the lighting isn't that great up close to the camera. I've got a .022 and a .015, so it's nice to have a couple of different sizes of solder because you may have some pins that are really big and it takes a lot of solder if you have a little tiny solder to get it in there, as well as it same thing goes the other way. If you have this great big huge blob of solder and you're trying to do something intricate, it kind of has a tendency to, you know, not work out so well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this where you can see it, and then it sounds like my kids are coming in, bringing stuff inside. All right. I also am going to take, and I recommend one of these little copper things that you can scrape your deal off on, the tip of your soldering iron. So I recommend one of those. But see how that smoke goes right into that thing? Well, you can't see it. Let me get down here. I don't know if you can see the smoke escaping, but it is going in to that little filter thing. It works really well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to blob solder on one of these terminals each, so that way it stays put, is what I'm going to do. And then we'll come back and we'll solder it with it flipped over. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to flip this thing over. And yes, this is one that I need to clean. Okay, I'm going to reposition the camera and get a better shot of this. Okay, now we got some close-up action going on. So let's go ahead and we will solder the rest of this. So I'm going to grab my solder, my iron, and we're going to just knock down the rest of these. Now this was an old perf board, so that's why there's pieces missing and things like that happening. So let's turn on our little guy. Now we got things repositioned. All right. Make all of our solder joints here. You see that super shiny solder? That tells you that you got a good solder joint. When you get it super shiny like that, that's when you know you've got a good joint. So okay, so there's that first piece. I'm going to put my holder down here with us. Okay, so there's that first piece. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little guy and I'm going to flip him around. Get him back in my vise here. And then we're going to put the other connector on. So I've got it right here. Get it to go into its slots. Just a second. And there it is. Now this one kind of sticks if I press hard enough. So it'll kind of stay while I solder it in, so we don't have to flip it over. A little solder on this one guy. We'll come back and touch him up, make him look nice here in a minute. There's that one, and now it's just a soldering game. You just sit here and solder it all in, taking care that it all looks nice and shiny. It's all doing good. Now, even though we're not going to use every single one of these pins, you still want to solder it down just for stability of the part here, because it won't be very stable if you only put a couple of pins, solder a couple of pins down. Whereas if all the pins are soldered in nice and good, then it's going to provide a real nice strong hold on that part, where that part's not going to want to break off or fall off the board very easily. All right, now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to loosen this up, and I'm going to snap in my Max 232. part. So now this guy, he wants to fall back out. I'm going to set him in right there. He wants to fall back out. So what I can do is on the underside, let me grab a screwdriver. Oh, where's my handy screwdriver? We'll do this. What you can do is very gently push the pins out. Just take and put some pressure and bend the pins kind of outwardly. Turn around, taking care not to smash anything. Just kind of put some tension on those pins, and there you go. Now the part doesn't want to fall out very easily, and it's all pushed down flat. So there's a little trick that you can do, is take a screwdriver and just kind of push those pins out. Now we'll go ahead and slide it in here very carefully, and we'll solder that down. So let's go ahead and grab our solder, and we'll solder that all down. So now there's should be 16 pins of this guy. We'll just solder each one down. That. Yep, I just got a solder bridge. Don't want to do that. No solder bridges. Okay, there we go. So now we got that finished. So now what we're going to do is definitely going to consult the, because I can never remember where this stuff goes. I'm going to consult the data sheet to see where our capacitors go, because that's the next thing. So I'm going to take this guy loose. That's looking pretty good, let me tell you. Looking pretty good. So now what I want to do is I'm going to take our little capacitors and put them in. And those of you that don't know, that was kind of hot. On these capacitors, these style capacitors, wherever the stripe is on electrolytic, see the stripe? That's the negative terminal. Also, another one that they do is whichever terminal is the longest is the positive and the shortest is the negative. Kind of like a diode. Diodes are done like that too. So, just so you get the polarity right on these electrolytics, because the polarity does matter. These will erupt like a little snap cap. It's amazing. So anyway, so what we need to do is I'm consulting our deal. So we got C1 plus and C3. So one goes between pin 1 and pin 3. So what we're going to do is the positive side goes between pin 1 and then it straddles and goes to pin 3. In fact, I'm going to go over one. I'll go over a notch. Shove that little guy in there, just like that. I'm going to flip it over and kind of give the pins a bend. And that'll keep them just like that. So now, set it back in our nifty vise here. Widen it out a little bit. And then we're going to take our soldering iron, grab our solder, and we're going to solder this guy down. Soldering is kind of a deal where you have to be patient. You just be patient, let it wick up onto what you're working with. Don't get in a hurry, otherwise you'll have issues. So now that that's done, take some little side cutters. I always call them dikes, but take some little side cutters and just snip off the little wires. Just snip them off. Snip them off flush with the solder joint. And that's it. And then you soldered that down. Well, tell you what I'm going to do, so you guys don't have to sit here and just watch all this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of them on, and we'll be back here in a second when I've got them all on. Okay guys, well now we got all of our caps on, so as you can see. And so now we have to hook them up, because all we've done is soldered them down up to this point. So we're going to go back into the vise, crank that down. And so now what we're going to do is we are going to assemble this. Okay, let's see if I can get maybe a little closer. Oh, that's a little blurry. Let's back up a little bit. See if it'll focus up. Okay, there we go. Hopefully this won't blur out while I'm doing this. What we're going to do is normally solder bridges are bad, but in this situation we want to create solder bridges between points and actually connect things. So for this capacitor right here, we're going to solder bridge, just get lots of solder going, and you want to solder bridge the next 2 points together just like that, and then all the way to the final spot. So you kind of have to drag and feed the solder around to get it to all hook up. And it takes a little bit, of time, but pretty soon you get it. See, as you can see, I just bridged that together. So now we'll do the next one. The next one is these 2 pins. So you can't get these guys to bridge. Oh, it looks like the pad came loose. See, that's the trouble with reusing boards. I can probably still make it work though. I want to make sure not solder bridge to the next one. There we go. That worked pretty good. Now we're going to do the next one. Solder bridge this guy to the next guy to the next guy. It's hard because solder loves to flow. And it loves to get bigger on other pieces. If you get enough going in between, you'll get your bridge to do its thing. This one's nice to have a bigger solder tip. But just stay with it, stay patient. You'll get it to bridge across. And if not, you can always take a piece of whatever it is, wire, and bridge this across with a piece of wire too. You know, you don't have to do it with the solder if you don't want to. So that's how we're doing this. At least this is how I do it. It's all personal preference, whatever you feel comfortable with. And now I have 2 more to bridge together, and that's it. And there we go. So now I've bridged all those together. So now all of them are hooked up, at least to the chip. Now we're going to have to run some wire around. So basically this is what it looks like. Still got caps up top, but everything's all soldered in. So yeah. As you can see, so everything's all soldered in. So okay, so now we need to wire up our power and ground and all of our other pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and pause, and all we're going to do is we're just going to run some wires from here around and connect it all up, make it look all purty, and we'll be back here in just a minute. Okay, guys, after quite a bit of wiring, looks like we've got it. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on her here. Looks like there's all the wiring that we got. It's kind of tricky to get some of this in here, especially these. I had to kind of cross them over to get the receive and transmit lined up. But that's basically what you got to do. I got 1 pin that's just vacant. But that's basically how you do a low-cost little serial device. So now if I take it out, we should have, okay, we got our Max 232 chip, our charge pump capacitors, a connection, and then places where you can connect it in. Pretty cool. Now I would probably recommend taking maybe super gluing a little bit on this, because you're going to be pushing in and pulling out a really tough connector, so I'd probably recommend super gluing the corners. But basically, that's it. All right, guys. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this session that we had here, this Let's Make Something. I think we'll probably do these a little more often, just where I just kind of throw something together and we just kind of build something together. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care. Like, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Make sure and follow me on Twitter and Google+, and we will catch you guys next time. That ought to do it.